What's up everyone, this is Platinum Howler 14, bringing you guys another post-commentated Wi-Fi battle. This one was a single battle against Draexzhan, aka Ciero, and this week I'm bringing a Life Orb Jolteon, a Max Attack, Max Defense Mega Scizor, Leftovers Specially Defensive Gastrodon, Choice Banded Arcanine, Lumberry Togekiss, and a Rocky Helmet Max HP, Max Defense Sableye. What is Draexzhan bringing? Draexzhan is bringing 6 walls. Draexzhan is bringing no distinct source of offensive pressure. Draexzhan is bringing a fat team. So, how am I going to break through this fat team? Well, I need to get rid of the Skarmory and the Arcanine, because once those two things are gone, Mega Scizor can put in a lot of work with a combination of Swords Dance, roosting off any damage that it takes, and then taking everything out with Bullet Punch. So that's going to be the plan heading into this battle. And battle start right now. I decide to lead off with my Jolteon, one of 2 dedicated leads on this team, and Draexzhan's going to decide to lead with this Crobat. And on the first turn, I kind of have a moment where I forget that Crobat is actually faster than Jolteon. So he's going to be able to go for a U-turn and right into his Rhyperior as I go for Volt Switch like a dummy. And Rhyperior eats it up, takes no damage. Now I have to switch out. I decide to switch out into my Gastrodon. I know that it's not going to take an overwhelming amount of damage from anything that this Rhyperior can do to me. He goes for Rock Blast, I guess maybe predicting Togekiss to come in on an Earthquake. But Rock Blast is going to hit 3 times, not going to do very much damage to Gastrodon at all. Going to get some HP back with Leftovers. And just brings this Florges to absorb absolutely everything that I might want to do. I go for Scald, 30% chance to burn, not going to get it this time. And I'm going to slow down because I am going a little bit too fast. I need to let the battle play out. I'm going to switch out my Gastrodon, fearing a potential Toxic, into my Scizor, and he's going to predict my Scizor switch in flawlessly as Arcanine comes in. And Scizor can do absolutely nothing to Arcanine, and Scizor wants to get the heck out when it sees an Arcanine. So I'm going to decide to switch out into my Sableye to try and get some residual damage on him by him going for Flare Blitz and taking some recoil and Rocky Helmet damage, and I can just sit and recover and try and wear him down a little bit. He goes for the smart play initially, going for the Will-O-Wisp, getting my Sableye burned so it takes damage every turn. Flare Blitz is actually going to do a lot of damage to me. Now he kind of sees my plan. I'm just going to try and sit here and recover, basically, I guess, recover stall him while he wears himself down. So I'm predicting the switch out here. I definitely was not predicting this to switch in, because if he was predicting me to go for recover, then why would he go into something that I can just burn the very next turn? I don't understand that. Right there was, when my Scizor was down to 34 HP, there's very little downside for me not going to recover. For some reason there, I was scared of the Rhyperior's potential damage output, but before, when I brought my specially defensive Gastrodon in, I wasn't. So I don't really know what I was thinking there. That was an easy recover. Instead, I decide to switch out into my Scizor on the Rhyperior so I can get my Mega Evolution up, which is going to drastically increase my defense stat. I know the Arcanine's going to come back in, so there's really no point in going for pitiful damage with Bullet Punch. I just go for Swords Dance in case he decides to stay in or switch something else in, but this time on his fire type move, I'm going to get my Flash Fire boost with Choice Banded Arcanine and try and wear this Arcanine, this defensive Arcanine, down a little bit, going for close combat. Flare Blitz actually would have done a slightly more damage there, but I wanted to go for close combat just in case he decided to switch in the Rhyperior. And he's going to go for Morning Sun and heal off the damage from close combat. So, and I see that I'm doing just under 50% with close combat to the Arcanine. So I figure he was just going to sit there and it wasn't going to be a winning battle for me. But he actually went for extreme speed. So I could have knocked him out or brought him down to a point that he was very weak where it would have been very difficult for him to recover up. So that was opportunity number 1 that I missed on trying to get rid of the Arcanine. I switched in Gastrodon on his extreme speed, and I scare him out back into his Florges, go for Scald again, do not get the burn again. And again, I'm fearing a Toxic, but this time I'm going to go out into my Togekiss in case he wants to predict Scizor again. And plus, there's really no point in bringing in Scizor when he just has a Skarmory or an Arcanine to switch in and wall the heck out of me every single time. So I decide that maybe I can bring in Togekiss and try and do some damage. But I'm not going to be able to because he has this Rhyperior. A common theme in this battle, there's just always that one Pokemon that is a perfect switch in to any one of my given Pokemon. And every time I try and find some room to do something, he just switches that perfect thing in, and I back to square one. Anyway, Rhyperior comes in. I can't do anything to Rhyperior with Togekiss, so I go back out into Scizor to sponge any hit that he might want to go for. This time he's going to switch in his Skarmory because he obviously wants Stealth Rocks up. So I'm going to take this opportunity to get Arcanine in before taking Stealth Rock damage. That's going to scare the Skarmory out, and he's going to go into his Arcanine, get the Intimidate, Attack Drop on me, as I just go for Flare Blitz, because Skarmory is the other thing that I need gone for Mega Scizor to put in some good amount of work. So I'm not going to hesitate, click Flare Blitz. Flare Blitz would knock the Skarmory right out if it stayed in. It didn't, went out into the Arcanine. And here I kind of forget about the Stealth Rocks that he just set up. I bring in my Sableye as means for trying to wear this down using a similar strategy as I had before. But I'm not going to be able to survive Stealth Rock damage and a turn of burn. So I very stupidly sack my Sableye right there. Now I'm going to bring in my Jolteon and do 50% with a Volt Switch. As I knew that he could have gone for extreme speed and really weakened my Jolteon a lot. But I figured that I just had a gut feeling that he wasn't going to do that, and then he would go for something like Flare Blitz instead. So I'm able to get good damage off with the Volt Switch, and then switch into my Gastrodon to eat up the Flare Blitz. And now he's going to be at around 40%, and here is a big misplay on my part. I expected him to switch in his Venusaur, which he hasn't switched in on my Gastrodon the entire match for some reason. So now I finally go for Ice Beam, and he stays in and tries to Will-O-Wisp me. He misses the Will-O-Wisp, and I hit him with Ice Beam, and it does only about 10%. Had I gone for Scald, that Arcanine would have been gone, and that would have been one threat to my Mega Scizor down. That was a very big mistake. I was playing to my opponent's win condition rather than my own win condition, which I'll talk more about later. So, second time around, I'm going to go for Scald. He just brings in his Florges and eats it up, and for the third time, I do not get a burn on the Florges. This time, I decide to stay in on the Florges because it's starting to get really annoying just coming in and eating everything. So, I go for Toxic, but I guess he scouts for that by going into Skarmory. I don't care if you go into Skarmory, I'm just going to sit here and click Scald. And this time I finally do get a burn and do a lot more damage to the Skarmory, which is really, really good. Burn on Skarmory is going to be taking 1/8 HP every turn. It's going to be a really good tool to try and weaken this thing. And he whirls me out into my Mega Scizor, which is exactly what I wanted to whirlwind me out into. It was the best case scenario because I'm going to be able to defog the rocks. So, Stealth Rocks up for about a total of 7 turns in that battle. You'll never see Stealth Rocks on either side of the field for the rest of the match. So, I get a free defog off, and because he stayed in and went for Brave Bird for, I don't know why he did that, because that's going to be doing absolutely nothing to me. So, not only do I get to defog, but I get to roost up to basically full HP as he brings in his Arcanine. So, again, I have to switch out, can't do anything to the Arcanine. This time I decide to go into the Togekiss to maybe try and paralyze him and Air Slash, flinch him to death, because this thing, along with pretty much everything else on his team, is just super annoying. He clicks Morning Sun and heals himself up to about 85%. I'm going to go for Thunder Wave, and he's going to switch in his Crobat. It's the fastest thing on his team to get paralyzed. So that was a pretty key at the time. And then I get some free damage off on it because I predict the U-turn. I predict him to predict my switch out because Crobat could deal a lot of damage to a Togekiss with a Cross Poison. So I get some free damage as the U-turns back out into the Arcanine. And right here I was very curious as to why he brought in Arcanine instead of something like Rhyperior. I'm just going to click Thunder Wave again. And here is where I find out why he decided to bring in the Arcanine. He knew I was going to go for Thunder Wave, and he's going to be able to eat his Lumberry, and that's a completely wasted turn for me as he gets off about a free 40% with a Flare Blitz. The next turn he's going to try and burn me, only to find out that I too am holding a Lumberry, as I just go for Thunder Wave again. And now I am definitely predicting the switch out into Rhyperior. So I'm going to go into my Gastrodon just in case he does that, because I'm also going to be faster than the Arcanine now that it's paralyzed. But instead he brings in the Florges, and all of the work that I had just done to burn the Skarmory, to paralyze the Crobat, and to paralyze the Arcanine is now just going to go out the window, because I know this thing was brought in to go for aromatherapy. So going for Toxic would now be a waste. I can't touch this thing. I have to switch out. I'm going to switch into Arcanine because I know he's going for the aromatherapy, so I'm not going to take any damage, and I'm going to be able to get some big damage off on something else. Alright, let's take a break here. Slow down while Florges has its leftovers. So now this thing's going to be forced out, and he's going to bring Arcanine back in, get the Intimidate off. I decided to go for an Extreme Speed here, because there are a lot of things that he could have brought in. I wasn't going to go for Close Combat in case he stayed in or something, and I could have gone for Wild Charge, but then I would have been taking Recoil, so I decided to go for an Extreme Speed instead, which is going to do nothing to the Arcanine, and he's going to Morning Sun all the way back up to full HP pretty much. I predict the Morning Sun and go into my Jolteon because at this point I decide that the best use for my Jolteon is to just weaken Arcanine to the point of no return so that hopefully I can take it out with something else. I get huge damage off with the Thunderbolt, and I'm going to stay in because I know a Shadow Ball will KO. I'm going to click Shadow Ball this time in case he wants to switch in his Rhyperior and be immune to my Electric type attack. So now burn damage and Life Orb damage is going to bring my Jolteon down to 5 HP. And so I know that I'm going to die to one more turn of Life Orb or burn. So right here, I just click Roar. And because Florges is annoying and I want it to get out of my face, I don't want the Florges. I don't want to see that stupid Florges. I end up roaring him back into Venusaur. We see the Venusaur on the field for the first time. as my Jolteon goes down, and ladies and gentlemen, we are 40 turns into the battle, and not a single one of Draexzhan's Pokemon has fainted yet. Can you believe this? It's 6-4 for him. I decide to bring in my Arcanine just to get some big damage off on this Mega Venusaur. Choice Banded, it's going to be an easy 2-hit KO, as he just stays in and goes for a Sludge Bomb. And right here is when I realize that if he does not conserve this Venusaur, he is going to have a big problem with Gastrodon. He's not going to be able to. It's not going to be very easy for him to take out Gastrodon if he doesn't have his Mega Venusaur. So I'm just going to click Flare Blitz again, hoping that maybe I take it out. Take something out, and that something is not going to be the Venusaur, it's going to be the Florges. He switches in the Florges and sacrifices it. Alright, great. First Pokemon knocked out for me in the 41st turn. Isn't that great? Anyway, I decide to bring out my Gastrodon now. At this point in the battle, Draexzhan is up 5-3. I figured that he would bring in the Crobat to because it has form a switch initiative and U-turn. He's going to U-turn on my Gastrodon, and I'm just going to cook Ice Beam. As he finally brings in his Mega Venusaur on my Gastrodon, because it finally has its Thick Fat ability. And I think that was a very low roll, I'm not sure. But either way, my Gastrodon is going to switch out into Mega Scizor. And here is where a whole bunch of switching shenanigans begin. I know that he has to save the Mega Venusaur. I know that Arcanine can come in and completely wall me. Gets the Intimidate off on the Scizor, but I'm going to pull the double switch out into Togekiss. I wasn't going to double into Gastrodon in case Mega Venusaur was going to stay in and completely obliterate me. So I bring in Togekiss, and I go, oh, well, he has a Rhyperior to switch in now. So I'm going to pull the triple switch into the Gastrodon. Get some free leftovers recovery. And now I pretty much am assured of a kill. Somewhat, because nothing really wants to switch in on Gastrodon anymore now that Florges is gone. So I'm just going to click Scald as he stays in with his Rhyperior. I guess trying to get the poison with Poison Jab. Doesn't get the poison. As you see how very little that does for a quad super effective move, because that Rhyperior is Assault Vest. And because I got the burn, I see an opportunity to go into Scizor and click Swords Dance, because at this point in the match, the timer is very low, and if somebody's going to win this battle, somebody's going to have to win it very quickly. So I'm going to go into Scizor, and I'm going to try and Swords Dance. And this time he's going to bring in his Skarmory rather than the Arcanine, because last time I predicted the Arcanine to come in, so if I had gone out into Togekiss, Skarmory would have been the better answer. But I Swords Dance, and I try to take the Skarmory out right away because it's either going to go for Roost or Whirlwind, and I get a crit with the Bullet Punch. And I strongly believe that crit mattered a lot. So that was a big break for me. Next, he's going to bring his Arcanine, and I'm going to try and take that out too, because if I don't take it out, this battle is going to end in a draw because the timer is very low. But if I do take it out, there's a chance that I can win. Unfortunately, he survives the Bullet Punch on about 5 HP, and he's able to get a burn off on my Mega Scizor. And I'm able to take out the Arcanine with a second Bullet Punch. But now my Scizor is burned and very, very weak. Decides to bring in his Crobat, as I'm going to get some last-ditch damage off on the Crobat. He's going to kill off my Mega Scizor, going for the Brave Bird. It could have been really bad if he decided to go for the Roost there, predicting my Bullet Punch, and I actually went for my own Roost, because he wouldn't be able to do very much damage to me, and I could click Swords Dance twice more and then be at +2 and actually be able to kill the rest of his team. So I knew that he kind of had to go for Brave Bird there. Anyway, now this is the last turn of the battle. This is turn 53 and the very last turn of the battle, even though Draexzhan still has 3 Pokemon left and I have 2 Pokemon left. If the timer had permitted us to continue the battle, then it would have been a very, very close finish. There's no way to really tell who would have won if we could have battled for an unlimited amount of time. What I was playing for was he was going to have to either eventually he was going to have to try and attack me with the Crobat. He was going to have to go for a Brave Bird, and he would not be able to lose his flying typing by going for Roost, and I would be able to most likely knock it out with an Ice Beam. If the Crobat went down, then he would probably have brought in Venusaur, taken me out with the Giga Drain, and then I would have brought in Togekiss, and depending on how much HP Mega Venusaur had, I might have been able to take it out with a 1 Air Slash. I'm not sure. It would have been really, really close. There's always the chance for the flinch. And maybe he would have Sludge Bombed, predicting my Gastrodon to switch out. And predicting my Gastrodon to switch out into Togekiss, and he would have taken out my Togekiss. So, I don't know. There's still a lot of things that could have happened at the end of that battle. It was going to be a very close finish. I'm sorry, Draexzhan, that the timer had to run out and we couldn't finish our battle. But I'll take a draw. It's my first point. It's not exactly what I wanted. My first point in my post-commentating career. Anyway, if there's anything that I learned from this battle, it's that you have to play to your own win conditions rather than your opponent's win conditions. What do I mean by that? I'll use the turn where he stayed in with his Arcanine on my Gastrodon and I went for Ice Beam instead of killing it with Scald. I was predicting him to do what he would have needed to do to have his best chance at winning the match, and that was not the right play. I needed to do, regardless of what was the best play for him, I needed to do what was the best play for me. And if I have an opportunity to get rid of one of the main threats to my team, then that's what I have to do. So that was the biggest misplay of the match, and I will say that if I had clicked Scald there, I probably would have won that for sure. But I didn't, and it ended in a draw. So next week I will be battling Ben again. Same opponent as last week with the rotation battle. And this time we're going to be having a triple battle. I do not have a triple battle team, so you will probably see 6 random Pokemon from my box that I have thrown together in a attempt of a triple battle team. So, hope you guys enjoyed this battle, and we'll see you next week. Alright guys, bye.